In this video we're going to build an ad for a fictitious perfume called Fireworks. And here is our rough layout. Indicators suggest to us the size, dimensions of our ad. We have 8.5 by 11. Right here, indication of a white background. We're actually going to mix that up a bit. We're going to have an off-white or a slightly colored background. And then here, where we have a headline positioned, it says reversed headline. Reversed referring to the fact that there's going to be a black background and some type of either white or, again, probably an off-white color we're going to apply there. There's our layout. It is also a full bleed, and that is important to know so that we can set up our document appropriately. We have our InDesign workspace ready to go. We have our essentials selection of palettes set up down the side. Here we go. File, new, document. We know we're working with an 8.5 by 11 default that comes up. We want to deselect facing pages as we're just working with this one-page ad. Now, the other thing we know about our ad is that there is a bleed component to it, which means the ink actually goes off the side. It gets printed up on a larger sheet of paper and then trimmed so that our images or color that we're applying to this paper does go right to the far edge. Helpful tool in InDesign when you are doing bleed is to actually apply this tool. So under options, I've already selected here, more options to fewer options. We're going to come down to bleed and we're going to type in 0.25 tab, and all four of those options now change because they're linked. We have our little link showing there. Now, this isn't going to really work for us well using the computer printers in our lab, but if we were to print on a larger sheet of paper, which is what would likely be happening at a magazine, for example, they will ultimately be able to trim off this this excess color that we're showing here. So with that set up, we're good. We're going to click OK. I also didn't change the margins. I've left them at 0.5 inches. So we can see now we've got our pink line, which are our margins. We have our red line, which is outside, just off the edge of the page, and that will be our understanding of our bleed space. First thing, I'm going to go to the rectangle frame tool. I'm going to select that. And I'm going to go to the top of our bleed frame here, and I'm going to click there and drag it across and come down a good 2/3 of the page, making sure that element is selected. If it's not selected, click that black arrow and click back on it so that we can make sure our points are all selected. File, place, and we want the Fireworks 1 image. I'm going to select that. It is in the Fireworks Week 3 folder, which is in the Share Out drive. Open. We can see that our image actually goes beyond the range of our frame that we've defined. Yet on the right-hand side is a little bit short. You can see that there's a little bit of a gap just to the right. I'm going to work within this frame. I'm pretty happy with the size of my frame right now at this stage, and I want to manipulate the contents within the frame. And to do that, I want to use my direct selection tool. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to select the photograph within the frame. Notice the change in the highlighting feature. It turns brown, and this actually shows that my image is being cropped by the frame I've set up. I'm going to try to slide this up a little bit. I'm just holding down the mouse click as I click and drag and maneuver this in place. I'm going to get it roughly where I want it. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm just going to drag that photograph out a little bit so that it does snap within that bleed boundary that I've got set up on the right hand side, and I've got some space. I can still shift that up a little bit more. There. I think that's good. this stage, I'm going to add a couple more frames to bring some photographs or logos in. So I'm going back to my rectangle frame tool. I'm clicking that. I'm going to create a rectangle right there for my product shot, and I'm going to create another rectangle right here for my logo. Click the black arrows and just select them into better position. If I want to change the size a little bit, I can do that. Select this image space right here. I go File, Place, and here I'm going to place the perfume Corbis JPEG. I'm going to click OK. And it looks like nothing shows up. There is no image represented in that space, but there actually is. This is just the white space in the corner of that graphic. I'm going to right click, Fitting, and I'm going to ask it to fit content proportionally. My image comes up. I'm going to select it. I'm actually going to go to the white arrow with that element selected. And I'll hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to grab a corner. I'm going to enlarge it just a little bit. Maybe stretch it up a little bit more. I have to hold down the Shift key while I'm making these changes. If I'm not holding down the Shift key, I'm distorting the shape of the bottle. And I think that should do it right about there. I'm going to go over to this other space here, black arrow, element selected, File, Place, and here I'm going to place the fireworks logo. And again, not quite set in the right position. I'm going to right click and Fitting and Fit Content Proportionally. Still want to move this element around a little bit. So I'm going to go inside that frame. I'm going to click inside. I'm going to slide over a little bit. I can maneuver its size, holding down the Shift key at all times. Okay, that's good. And at this stage, I'm going to go back to my black arrow, select the fireworks logo, and then I'm going to go Fitting, Fit Frame to Content. So that nice and clean. I can still maneuver this around. Whoops. Control Z. My black arrow. Selecting the blue frame, clicking on the blue frame, I can maneuver this fireworks logo around and tuck it wherever I want it. Now I can also, if I want with my black arrow, again I'm clicking that blue frame, hold down the Shift and Control Alt key, and I can adjust the size of the frame and the image inside that frame at the same time. I can click and drag, but I have to hold Control and the Shift key at the same time as I make those adjustments. Anyways, find the setting that I want, and once I'm good there, I can click off. Next up, we need to add a bit of a text box here. I'm going to go and select the Type tool, and I'm going to draw a little box space right there. And type in some copy. I'm just going to put some placeholder type here at this time. We can always go back and fix it up. We're going to include our URL, fireworksbychanel.com. And we can come back and make some changes to that later. Next thing is I need a headline up here as well, but if I actually click and start drawing my headline in this space, I'm going to have a couple challenges. One, I might actually convert the picture frame to a text tool, and I don't want that. But the other thing, the default for the type is going to be black, and it's going to be really hard to see the black type you're working with on that black background. Remember, I do have these workspaces to the left and to the right of my page, so I can click and drag a text box there, and I can put some information in that text box. Again, I've just put some placeholder type there. At this stage, I'd like to start making some changes to this text, and I want to be able to work with this text a little bit distant as far as my view goes, and with InDesign I can zoom in and zoom out of some spaces. So I'm going to go to the black arrow, and best when you're actually working with a very specific item that you want to zoom into that item. So make sure it's selected. You can see by my text box it is selected, and I'm going to use the quick keys Control plus to zoom in. Zooming out is Control minus, plus in, minus out, plus minus, plus minus. Please don't do drugs when you are working with InDesign. Just kidding, just having some fun. So we've zoomed into our text here, going to the text tool, highlighting the text. You can change your typeface to whatever you want. I've got one that I've picked out for myself earlier. I'm just going to go quickly grab that. I can change the size of this to whatever I want, just the width of the box, and I will come back and I'll make some changes to that in a second. Zooming out, if I want to go back to a full snapshot view of my workspace, shortcut key Control 0 brings us back to our full view of things. At this stage, I want to start applying some color. And what I want to do is I want to use a couple of our palettes on the side. So I'm going to select the color palette. I'm going to click it. And just in this gray space here, I'm going to click onto it and I'm going to snap it off its little moorings there and drag it out. And I'm going to do the same for swatches. I'm going to snap swatches open and I'm going to grab the gray space and I'm just going to actually tuck it down here a little bit. I'm going to tuck the color one down just below it as well. Just over here is where I'm going to put it. There we go. So now I have access to both. And that's an important thing here. Whoops, I keep kind of snapping things out and they shouldn't be snapping out like that. Oh, shoot. There we go. Snap and snap and snap. Great. Here we go. I want to apply some color to this text because certainly if I drag it on there and place it on the background, it's black on black and that's not going to look very good. What I want to be able to do is maybe pick up some color from what is splashing around in my photograph right now. And the way to do that is to first make sure that you've got your palettes open, which we've done. I'm going to select the text I'm working with, and notice what happens over here in my color palette. It just shows that I've got black fill for my letters. Right here is what we call our little color stack, and here's a little color stack, and it's repeated here for a third time in our window view. And this color stack indicates the fill of the color, and the one behind it in the background is the line. And whichever is the foreground setting is the one we're going to be working with. So right now our T, our fill of our letters, is the space that we'll be working with. Now, it shows that it's black and doesn't really give us much in the way of color options to work with other than the selection that's in our swatches. But that's not really important to us right now. We actually want to find a color that's in here to work with. So first thing I want you to do is do a little switch here. We need to find our hidden rainbow of colors for our color palette, and it's tucked in this little button here. We have some options that we're going to work with. Typically working with a printing option, we want to work with CMYK. RGB comes up as another option. RGB is usually applied for websites and for video use, but CMYK is the printing color combination we want to work with, so I'm going to select that. And there we have our color rainbow color here. And we have lots of controls. We can adjust these sliders back and forth to adjust the concentration of color. And you can see that in the T-fill, now my colors are changing, and the colors will be changing in this text box here because I have that text selected. So I can keep adjusting colors if I want to. I can actually type in values anywhere between 1 to 100%, and this is saying, you know, how much cyan, magenta, yellow, or black will you want to be applying or mixing for this particular color combination. So I can adjust those numbers as I need. The other nice feature is I can actually just dip into this little rainbow here and pick a color that way. Now, a little bit harder to actually match a color that's in the rainbow, of course. I can say I don't want any color by clicking the diagonal red line, or I can click white fill by clicking the white space, or click black fill by clicking the black space. Like I've said, what I want is to dip into colors of our photograph and bring that into this. So I'm going to go to the eyedropper tool on our left-hand tool palette, and I'm going to click that. And when I come across over the page, I want to use the Alt key as I click into this image. And if I'm not shifting or applying the Alt or holding down the Alt key at the same time, I could have some problems. So when you click to select your color by holding the Alt key and then clicking. So I can click anywhere on this photograph, and you can see that the color is changing here as I dip into different parts of that image. Now, the eyedropper tool is very selective, comes down to just a small little pixel it's finding and identifying, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of colors mixed in each of these pixels in this image that's being presented. So it's quite sensitive. We're just trying to find one that's kind of a bright yellowish off-white color. I'll take a little bit of dipping to find the right one. That's probably pretty close. So I'll go with that for now. I can always come back and make some changes. Now I've got this color. I'm pretty happy with my combination. I think this is going to work for me. What I'd like to do now at this stage is get it up into my swatches palette. So right click that letter T in the color and say add to swatches, and then there it is right there. There's the color formula that's going to be applied. And we can go back to our black arrow and we can slide this into position, and we can come back and we can work with that a little bit later. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to put a little bit of fill in behind this element right here. So I need to go to my rectangle tool, which is right there. I'm going to click it. And again, from our bleed right across our bleed there, I'm going to put that. Now, using our little color stack again, we can see that this indicates that there's zero fill. The red diagonal line shows that there's no fill to that shape, but there is a black line all around it. We don't need that black line, so I'm just going to click that black line in this color palette, and you'll notice that it brings it to the foreground. I'm going to turn that off. I go back to the fill selector here, and I'm going to move that to the foreground, moving the line selector to the background. And here is the color that I used in my headline, and I'm going to select that, and you can see that it fills my page there. I'm going to right click that, and I'm going to send it to the back and arrange send to the back. Now my color looks a little bit purpley. I didn't want it so purple. I wanted it to be a little bit more yellow. So I'm going to go click that and go to CMYK and probably punch it out with a little bit more yellow. That's probably a little bit better. Try to brighten it up a little bit. Good. And I want to convert this because I want that shown up in my text there too, so I should be able to go boom, and notice how I just clicked and plopped it into that color mixer, and sure enough it changed the color of my text too. So if you're not happy with your colors, lots of ways to adjust it, manipulate it, and work with it. A few more changes to make. We have in our layout at this stage, our bottle is in this white space on top of our colored background, and ideally we want that white space not to be there. However, it is part of this photograph, so to eliminate it, there is a tool that we can use in InDesign which will eliminate high contrast space so that it does fit much better on this page. So first off, we need to select that item, and I'm going to select it with the black selector tool and make sure the frame is selected. So I've used black arrow and I've made sure I've clicked on the frame of that shape. At this stage I'm going to go Object and come down to Clipping Paths, and under Clipping Paths I'm going to have this dialog box that comes up. Type, I don't have many type options. I'm going to take Detect Edges because it's there. Defaults come up, and take a look at Preview, and I think that's going to be just fine. We don't need to make any adjustments to our threshold or tolerance. So I'm going to click OK with that. And sure enough, look at that, nicely magically clicks or selects just the bottle and not the whole image with the white background. Eliminates the white background for us. At this stage, black arrow, click off. I'm going to do a print preview, get a sense of what's going on. Things are coming together. This is good. I like what I'm seeing at this stage. I would like to do something with our bottle. It seems a little bit flat sitting in that space, so I'm going to artificially create a drop shadow, a tabletop shadow, so it looks like it's actually sitting on a tabletop. And to do that, I'm going to go back to our regular workspace view, and over here underneath the rectangle tool, you can click and hold that down, you can get the ellipse tool. So I'll select the ellipse tool, and I'm just going to create a small little ellipse, probably about that big right there. When I draw the tool on my ellipse, I can see with my color palette that I've got zero fill, but I have a line that goes around. Hard to see the line right now because it is being shown on the screen as being selected, and when it's selected everything is blue, of course. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to bring the black frame to the foreground, and I'm going to say no frame on that, and I'm going to go to the fill selector, bring that to the foreground by clicking on it, and I'm going to fill that with black. With that element selected, I'm going to go Object, Effects, and the effect I want to use is the Basic Feather. Basic Feather creates a nice soft edge, and there's my feather width that it's offering on the default. I can make some changes to that, and it will feather even finer edges, or I can feather kind of a thicker edge. Again, a bit of experimentation will have to happen here. I think I'm going to go with maybe, I'll try the 0.25 inches and we'll see what happens with that. I say OK, grab my black arrow, select that element, and I'm now going to drag it over top of our bottle. And I'm going to zoom in. And I want to now have that bottle be above it. It's actually sitting below our shadow that we brought in. So I'm going to, I can right click that, and I can arrange. I've got the shadows selected, so I'm going to send it backward, not to the back. I'm sending it backward, which just takes it one step back behind that image that's in front of it. And not sure if it made it or not. No, it didn't. So just to make sure, I'm going to select the bottle and bring the bottle to the foreground. So I've got the bottle selected. I'm going to arrange and bring it to the front. Make sure it's on top. There we go. Now we got it. And I can either move the bottle, or I can select the shadow and move the shadow and put the shadow in position. A little bit hard to select the shadow because it's stuck in behind that bottle. And the trick is, if you're working with elements that are stacked on top of each other and you want to select a different element within that stack, I'm going to hold down the Control key and I will be able to get through to the next item. And once I've got it selected, I can use the little arrow keys and I can line that up as I need to. And I think that's probably good right about there. I'm going to zoom out. Control 0 gives me the full view of the page. Select off. Row gives me the full view of the page. Select off to that element. Select W. And I can see it does give me a little bit of depth. It'd be something I want to play around with some more. At this stage, I want to look at positioning my headline and making sure my headline is going to be in good position. I'm going to want to move around my copy and line that up appropriately. I'm going to change my copy as well with a different font. Select the font, make some adjustments. You have some time to play around and make those adjustments. Write a strong headline, write some engaging copy that gets the customer interested and wants to visit the website and learn more. You have the brief. I hope you have fun. You've got the tools to work with. Enjoy.